Hey guys, Shane here from Fugatech 3D Printing, and today we're going to review Folgertech's PLA Filament. Hey guys, welcome back to Fugatech 3D Printing, and as I said, today we're going to look at Folgertech's PLA Filament. I got this with the Folgertech FT5, and this one I have not used yet. I've been using the yellow a bit. So we're going to open this one up and see how it does. So this filament, as expected, comes in a vacuum sealed bag with a desiccant pack here in the middle. It's not, sealed tight like some manufacturers have, but it's tighter than a lot of others that I have received and purchased on my own. The spool is a smaller diameter spool with a much larger hole in the middle, which is, a little interesting. Have not seen that before, and it's also held together by bolts. So this is actually two pieces that are, screwed together, not one injection molded piece, which is also interesting. It makes me wonder how well it will, stay together, if they will loosen at all, since it's actually two pieces. Let's open it up. Of course, we need our unboxing knife. Okay, here it is. So this is their orange PLA. And I also have their yellow PLA again, which I've already been printing with, and I'm gonna do some prints with this one. And I have noticed that their filaments are a little bit transparent. They are not as opaque as I would expect them to be, which, it can be however you need it to be. You buy filament per the colors you need and per the price, and if this price meets what you want and the filament is the color that you want, then that's great. I did notice opening this is a filament with an interesting smell to it. I can't quite place it, but it is what it is. So here on the side, they don't give you much information on this. I mean, there's none at all. It's 1.75 millimeter PLA, the orange, and there's their own serial number, barcode type for what it is under there. On the other side is their brand sticker, Folgertech. That's it. There's no information on how to print this. They give you the very basics on their website, which pretty much what everybody does, but it's interesting that usually there's a sticker or in the box. The boxes come, no matter how many you buy, they put them together and they tape them all together. So I didn't actually save any of the boxes because it was just kind of ludicrous to try and cut all that tape just to save a box. It just wasn't worth it. So that's about it. Let's put this on the printers to get some time lapses going, see how it goes. Let's do it. There's some time lapses for you. I like doing those. They're a lot of fun to show off, and I think it's very interesting to be able to do something like that. First print I'm going to show you, I don't have a video of, and I was using this for a while on the FT5, so if you've been following me and look at my previous videos and follow me on social media, you'll see that I had these on there, and these are these triangles that have 3 mounting points that they use M5 T-nuts and they bolt to each side of the FT5 like so, and then a threaded rod goes across the middle. I decided to take these off because I didn't like the bow that I was getting in the 5/16 threaded rod. It's a meter long, so I should say a yard long because I got it from America, and it does have quite a lot of bow in it, and I didn't want to bend it because I wanted to maybe use it for a future project, and I just didn't like how much the filament was actually bouncing for how it was moving around. So I stopped it and I took them off. So this one here was my first print, and as you can maybe be able to see, the infill is not very thick. I think it's a 5 or I think it's 10% on this one. So the part is weaker. It bends quite a bit with 3 perimeters. I did 3 top and 3 bottom layers, which definitely in this filament is not enough. And I also printed this at 210 degrees Celsius, and I was noticing problems, but I let it finish printing, and the top layer is super, super rough. I mean, like jagged rough. It's almost like you're rubbing against bark on a tree. And I could definitely tell it was not hot enough, which was surprising because it's PLA, and I haven't yet to encounter a PLA that hot enough. And also, I'm still not getting a complete fill with 4 top layers. It's just bizarre. So that, made me think, well, let's do some more tests on some other things. So of course, I had to print my fossil fish. I really like this model. The guy that made it is a genius. My kids love it. These are great gifts. I give them out to everyone. I'm that guy, so it's okay. This printed out well. I did have a failure though, the first time through, and this was printed at 220 degrees centigrade with the original that failed was a 60 degrees centigrade bed. I bumped that up to 70, and this printed out perfectly. So 220, 70 degrees on the bed, super duper hot, and it printed beautifully. The layers came out great, no over extrusion, under extrusion anywhere. This is 5 bottom layers, 5 top layers. For this model, I don't like seeing the infill, so I really had to bump that up. And I was really worried that it was gonna, screw up again. But it came out great, no supports needed. This is printed on my G-Tech, and which has a fantastic, ring fan that goes on that. There's a little bit of zitting going on here. I am going to blame the filament on that because other things I printed at this 200% model came out just fine. I just had to adjust the temperatures and the layer heights. And there is some lifting that happened, some curling up of the first layers with this. I don't see that in all of my prints. I don't really see that in any other filaments, especially with this model. Again, I've printed this model at least a dozen times now. I feel like I know it pretty well, and I did have some curling up on a few of these ribs, but not very many. But again, it printed well, and it's, not too bad, but you have to really play with the settings. This is a 30% infill. And for kicks, I printed out the 100% scale model of the fossil fish, and it came out okay. It's pretty rough to bend it. It did have issues with these smaller joints that are very close together. The larger ones came out just fine, but these smaller ones, they are tight. Definitely need to move it around quite a bit in order to get it to loosen up. This was 4 bottom, 4 top, 2 perimeters, 10% infill because it's such a small model. And again, it came out well. It's not the best print. The top is fairly smooth. Again, not as smooth as I get from my other filaments, I might even try doing 225 to see if that changes anything, but I'm really kind of worried about printing PLA that hot. Let's see what else we have. As I say a lot, I'm a function printer. I bought 3D printers to print things for my house. I did not intend to do any of this stuff or any of the other things I do. Yeah, I'll make, you know, toys for the kids and little props for me, but I bought this purely as a function. So I have to keep printing functional items. So this is a, you know, just almost like a command hook. It's going to be going in our kitchen for whatever it is my wife needs to hang. I believe there's a sponge brush thing that she needs to hang, so this will be put in there. Put one screw through it and it'll be good to go. This came out really well. It's a super strong part. I can't break it off. This is with 2 perimeters, 35% infill, 4 bottom layers, 4 top layers, at 220 degrees centigrade. This came out really, really nice. So there is a arch to the model, and it all came out very smooth, much smoother than some of the other prints. Some of these just might be the way they're sliced or the way they're modeled, just not jiving well with this filament for some reason. But you know, it came out very well, and I'm happy with this part. So let's talk price real quick. The Folgertech filament is super cheap, especially when you buy several rolls at once, because then you're shipping one roll to me was like $6, but shipping like 4 to 6 rolls would have only been like $8. So their shipping is not too bad. It's only $13 a roll. So it's not the cheapest filament out there. It's definitely not the most expensive. So if you're looking for some cheap filament to test things out on, this might be it, but bear in mind, this filament requires it to be super hot, much hotter than I've printed anything else at. And that is just something to really be aware of, because not many people have bought the filament. So there's not a lot of traffic out on the internet on, hey, what settings do I print this at? You type in Hatchbox, you'll find a million things. But with the Folgertech filament, not too much out there. So hopefully this will help a few people that do decide to buy it and help them, you know, kind of get off the ground a little quicker. Okay, so now let's take a look at some orange models. So of course I printed out the fossil fish, and this came out really well. Took me a while to get it dialed in, but the first thing you should know is I had a pretty epic failure trying to print this. So the first probably 3 times I tried to print it, it kept coming off the build plate, coming off the build plate. I was like, okay, so made a few more adjustments, finally got it to stick to the build plate. I upped my heat to 75 degrees centigrade on the bed, and it finally got to stick. So printed well, got the first 3-4 layers down, then it started to infill, got another 3-4 layers there. I was like, okay, this is good, I'm gonna go to bed. Came back down the next day and I woke to this. And this was just the most epic failure I've had. Totally ruined the hot end because the plastic got inside of the tape and onto, like, there's like, and on the G-Tech there's like almost a like cotton underneath that tape to kind of insulate it. And that was just totally caked with filament. It got inside where the thermistor is, where the heater is. It smelled so bad because it was burning the filament. So that was my, you know, epic failure with this filament. And luckily I had a spare. Talked about it in my last vlog episode. And so at least I was able to replace it. And we did get this print finally. So it came out well. The bridging is good, you know, very nice layers. This is a 0.15 layer height. You know, 20% infill on this one. You can still see, it's hard to see on the camera, but on the bottom layers you can see the infill. This is with 4 bottom and 4 top layers. The top, you can barely see it. This is very smooth, surprisingly, versus, you know, what the yellow was. The yellow came out smooth eventually once I got a decent print, but a lot of the other yellows that I had, it came out very rough. The orange came out much better, so a little bit of the pimpling here, but that's my settings. But otherwise, it did come out to be a very good print. The other thing to mention, I'd forgotten, it did curl up on the orange. You can see here, it curled up on the orange, the exact same place it curled up on the yellow. So both of these prints curled up 3 fins, 3 ribs from the back both of them curled up the exact same place. I used the exact same settings for both of these, except I bumped this one up to 75 degrees centigrade, and it's still curled up. I don't use, you guys know, I don't put anything on the glass. PLA should stick to glass on its own. That is a true test of PLA, and the fact that these kept curling up is kind of a telltale how it is. Okay, next I printed out this, so little household tool for my wife and for me when we cook. Little spaghetti measuring tool for you. It came out well. 3 bottom, 3 top layers. This was a 20% infill, and you can see through it. If you hold it up to the light, you can see all of the infill. I do a fast honeycomb. The letters on it came out well. They're legible. You know, a little bit rough when you run your finger across those. The rest of it is very, very smooth. This was also a 0.15 layer height. The side, I think it was a little too close to the bed for this model at least, because I had a little bit of the bottom layer smushing out too much. That actually makes it like a sharp edge to go around the bottom, but I have a tool that we can just run over that and make it nice and round it off, and it won't hurt anybody. But this came out as a very good print. All right, next I created this. So this is a little key rack and little shelf by my front door. I have had this on the wish list of stuff to print, so to speak, for a long time, and I figured, you know what, let's give it a try with this orange. It printed well, first try with this one, so the layers were good. This is a 0.2 layer height on this one, and as you can see here on the hooks, there had to be support because it had to print this side and this side, because they almost start going back over, you know, candy cane style. So it had to print both, had to go on support. I would say 2 of the 4 came out really, really well, and 2 of them had some stringing. The layers didn't adhere to each other properly, so a few kind of hang down. You can see one on this one, maybe. You can see on the camera, but I can see it here. There's one left on this one that I haven't pulled off yet. But other than that, there's 0 cleanup on this model, which was nice. I mean, aside from the pulling off the support, and there, actually I remember now, there was a little bit of stringing between the 4 hooks. And this was the only model to give me stringing with this filament, I will say that. This was printed at the same as the fossil fish, so 220 on the nozzle, 75 on the bed, and I print right around 60 to 80 millimeters a second. You know, printed it out well, it's nice and strong. So this came out as a good print. Okay, and finally, I made a bunch of these chip clips. So I found this model, again, this is another thing on my I want to print list. Just hadn't had the time yet to do it, and so I did it. This is a pretty interesting model because it uses this circled piece here as kind of a spring to keep it, to keep tension on it, and they kind of just snap in. Let me see if I can get it down. It's pretty tight. I'll probably end up sanding down part of it, but to pull back out, this one's really tight. I think the bigger one was a little easier to use. I've only played with these once before shooting this, but they snap down well. They hold really well. A little bit of stringing on these ones. You can see there's a couple little whiskers on it, but not too bad. I printed all 4 of these on one build plate, so I just had to arrange them, you know, like so, and then 3 were this way, and this is the largest one. And they all print just like this, so that gives it kind of the springiness to it. And that was, you know, it worked out well. This is 2 perimeters to make up the spring part of it. And these were 20% infill, 2 perimeters, 4 top, 4 bottom. This filament is very, very translucent, so if you want to have a nice solid color looking piece, you need to do more perimeters, so at least 3, I would say, because you can still see a lot through these even on the sides. And you need to do at least 5 or 6 top and bottom layers if you want to have a nice solid looking piece. You don't want to be able to see anything through it, like have the infill bleed through. You know, these all work really well. I haven't used them on chips yet, but I hope to one day. So again, another good print off of it. These were all printed on my G-Tech. All of the orange was printed on my G-Tech. And it handles it pretty well once you get it dialed in. But let's talk more about that now. So you've seen my prints, you've seen my epic failure. We've talked about it So what do I think about the filament? I don't think this filament is worth it for the money. At $12.99 a roll plus about $6 shipping, it's just not worth it. There's too many other bargain brands out there that are worth the filament. This also probably has to do because I was not expecting translucent filament because it doesn't say that it is. I was expecting it to be a solid colored filament. Like I was expecting this yellow to be a little less neon and a little more solid, kind of like you saw in the Inland PLA, where that was a beautiful yellow color, nice, thick, opaque, and it prints beautifully. This filament does print well. Don't get me wrong, it does print well. I got some pretty good prints with this. I mean, these clips are great. But it took forever to dial this in, and no one talks about it in the forums because no one really has had it. No one is talking about it. So I am, 220 degrees centigrade minimum, 70 degrees centigrade on the bed minimum. You can print fast, 60, 80, you might even do 100. I didn't do 100 with this. But it takes time for this filament. I don't think bargain filament should take time to dial in. Maybe for like super cheap stuff, like it's $5 a roll or $10 a roll. I mean, this is almost $18 a roll. So you're almost getting the Hatchbox range, and Hatchbox prints like a dream. Right now it's sitting in Inland PLA range, which prints fantastically, and this does not. So, can you get good prints? Yes. Should you buy this for what it's worth? No. I'm sorry, Folgertech, but I think you should look for a new supplier in your filament. All this being said, Folgertech did not send me this filament. I bought this with my own money so that I could do this review and test out a new type of filament. I'm looking forward to testing out more, and there will be more to come in the very near future. So thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. And now I have a Patreon. A few of you guys have already jumped on ship and you've been donating to me. My first goal was $30 a month. With that money, I can buy at least one new roll of filament per month to do a review. I'll buy any brand. You can suggest the brand if you want. Any brand out there. I want to do it right around the $30 range because some of them get a little more expensive than that, but we'll get there. So for everyone out there, got $1 or $2 to spare, throw it in my Patreon. I really appreciate it. You'll help build so much more content for me, and I'll be a little less out of pocket for this. And once we start getting that, then we can start looking into other things that I can raise through Patreon. I'll look into Patreon only content eventually. I'll try and share on there as much as I can. So I really appreciate if you guys would help me do that. And that all being said, until next time, happy printing.